Off the coast of France, a fortified abbey rises straight out of the sea, on an island that the tide cuts off from the world twice a day, with water racing in faster than a horse can run. For 1,000 years of war, no army ever took it, and it is just one of 12 castles built in places so hostile that no fortress should ever have stood there, on cliff edges, inside caves, and on rocks floating above the clouds. 12 castles, raised on sheer cliffs, tidal islands, cave mouths, and mountain summits by builders who refused to accept that a place was out of reach, counting down from the boldly improbable to the one the sea itself defends. Number 12. In southern Germany, Liechtenstein Castle balances on a rock spur 250 meters above the Eckaz Valley, a fairy tale tower reachable only across a narrow stone bridge over a straight drop. The drone circles the tower where its walls rise flush with the cliff face, stone and bedrock fused so tightly it is hard to tell where the mountain ends and the castle begins. Dropping below the bridge, the camera traces the only way in, a narrow stone span hanging over the chasm, the single thread connecting the castle to solid ground. The castle was built in the 1840s for Count Wilhelm of Württemberg, who loved a knight's novel called Liechtenstein so much that he decided to build the book in stone. 2 medieval castles stood on this rock before it, and both were destroyed. The site was considered so exposed that for centuries nobody bothered to rebuild anything on it. The drop from the courtyard wall to the valley floor is around 250 meters, and the footprint is so small that most of the rooms stack vertically inside the tower. In winter, fog fills the Eckaz Valley below, and the castle appears to float on a white sea, the bridge vanishing into cloud behind it. The Dukes of Urach still own Liechtenstein today, and its halls of stained glass and armor remain furnished, a private fairy tale that happens to sit on the edge of a cliff. Number 11. On Scotland's east coast, Dunnottar Castle covers the entire top of a 50-meter sea rock, cut off on 3 sides by the North Sea and reachable only along one narrow neck of land. The drone rounds the seaward cliffs where the walls grow straight out of the rock, gulls wheeling below the battlements and the North Sea foaming at the base. Sweeping down the grassy land bridge, the camera follows the only approach, a steep path that dips toward the shore and climbs again through a single fortified gate in the rock. In 1297, William Wallace stormed Dunnottar and took it from an English garrison, one of the first great strikes of the Scottish Wars of Independence. In 1651, the Scottish crown jewels were hidden here while Cromwell's army besieged the rock for 8 months and were smuggled out before the walls finally fell. The rock itself decided the castle's shape. Nearly 4 acres of buildings crowd the summit, because every wall could simply stop at the cliff edge and let the sea do the rest. Below the castle, a sea cave cuts clean through the headland, and storm waves boom through it loudly enough to be heard in the courtyards above. Dunnottar has been a Pictish fort, a royal stronghold and a prison, and its silhouette against the sunrise remains one of the most photographed ruins in Scotland. Number 10. At 1,460 meters, Rocca Calascio is the highest fortress in the Apennines, a white stone watchtower standing alone on a bare mountain ridge in Abruzzo. The drone circles the keep where its pale limestone walls catch the light, 4 round corner towers guarding a ridge with nothing around them but wind and grass. Climbing the ridgeline, the camera rises from the abandoned stone village below to the fortress above, the path threading between roofless houses toward the summit. The tower began as a 10th century lookout, built not to fight armies but to watch them. Signal fires could relay a warning across the mountains within minutes. No army ever bothered to attack it, but in 1703 a massive earthquake did what soldiers would not, shattering the upper towers and emptying the village below. The fortress guarded one of Italy's great sheep-driving routes, where 1 million animals a year once flowed across these mountains like a slow white river. Hollywood found it centuries later. Lady Hawk and The Name of the Rose both used the Rocca as a ready-made medieval set that no studio could ever build. Today, hikers reach it on foot from the village of Calascio, and at sunset the white walls glow orange above a sea of ridges stretching to the horizon. Number 9. In Austria, Hochosterwitz Castle crowns a 172-meter rock that erupts from flat farmland, and the only way up passes through 14 fortified gates in a row. The drone spirals up the rock alongside the walled ramp, passing gate after gate, each tower angled to trap attackers in the open ground before the next. At the summit, the camera glides over courtyards and arcaded galleries that have watched the Seine Valley, without interruption, for more than 11 centuries. The rock was first written down in the year 860, and in the 1570s, Georg Kievenhuller rebuilt it into the gauntlet of 14 gates that stands today. Each gate has its own trick: drawbridges, murder holes, doors that only open inward, and in 4.5 centuries, no attacker ever fought past all 14. Legend says a besieging duchess gave up after the defenders threw their very last ox over the wall, convincing her the castle had food to waste. The Kievenhuller family still owns Hochosтерwitz after more than 400 years, and their armory of pikes and breastplates still lines the halls. From the valley floor, the castle looks painted onto the sky, and on clear days, its white walls are visible from 30 kilometers away. Number 8. In Japan, the ruins of Takeda Castle ride a 353-meter mountaintop, and on autumn mornings, a sea of clouds swallows the valley until the walls float in open sky. The drone glides along the stone terraces as morning fog pours between them, ramparts appearing and vanishing like islands in a slow white tide. Rising above the summit, the camera reveals the full ridge, a stone ship 400 meters long, sailing alone above the cloud line. The fortress was raised around 1443 as a mountain outpost in a war between rival clans, its walls hauled up the ridge stone by stone without machines. After the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, its last lord was ordered to end his own life, and the castle was abandoned. No one ever lived on the mountain again. Only the stonework survived 4 centuries of typhoons and frost, which is exactly why Takeda is called the Machu Picchu of Japan. The cloud sea forms on cold mornings from September to December, when moisture from the river valley condenses below the summit just after dawn. Photographers climb the facing mountain in the dark to catch the castle in the clouds, a view so popular that the trails now open before sunrise. We are halfway through the list, and from here the castles stop sitting on mountains. They start hanging off cliffs, hiding inside solid rock, and rising out of the open sea. Number 7. On the Crimean coast, the swallow's nest clings to the very lip of a 40-meter cliff over the Black Sea, a castle just 20 meters long, standing where one more step would be open air. The drone swings out over the water and looks back at the castle hanging past the cliff edge, its balcony floating directly above the waves. Skimming the cliff face, the camera climbs from the sea to the tower in one rise, the full 40-meter drop compressed into a single breath. The castle was finished in 1912 for a Baltic German oil baron, replacing a wooden cottage with a stone miniature of a knight's keep. In 1927, a strong earthquake cracked the cliff itself. Part of the rock fell into the sea, but the little castle refused to follow. Engineers later slid a reinforced concrete slab under the entire building and stitched the cliff back together, so the castle now stands on a hidden shelf of modern engineering. The rooms inside are so small that the castle has been a reading room, a restaurant, and a gallery, but never really a home. Today, it is the postcard symbol of the entire Crimean coast, photographed millions of times from a viewpoint it has dominated for a century. Number 6. Above the blue city of Jodhpur, Mehrangarh Fort rises off a 122-meter rock, with walls up to 36 meters high, so seamless that the fort and the cliff read as one stone. The drone rises along the fused wall where cliff becomes masonry without a visible seam, ramparts leaning out over the blue rooftops far below. Crossing the ramparts, the camera drifts over courtyards of carved sandstone screens, a palace hidden inside a wall that looks like a mountain. Raujoda founded the fort in 1459, moving his capital onto the Rock of Birds, a perch so bare that water had to be cut from the stone. Legend says a hermit displaced from the hill cursed it with thirst, and the fort's deep rock-cut reservoirs are the builder's answer to that curse. The second gate still carries round scars from cannonballs fired by the armies of Jaipur, hits the walls absorbed without ever letting anyone through. Rudyard Kipling called Mehrungar the work of angels, fairies, and giants, and its halls of palanquins and armor still feel borrowed from a legend. From the ramparts at dusk, the entire city below turns indigo, a sea of blue cubes washing against the base of the rock. Number 5. 2,100 meters up in Iran's Alborz Mountains, Alamut Castle sits on a blade of rock reachable by one narrow path, the eagle's nest that a whole order of assassins called home. The drone rides the ridgeline toward the summit, cliffs falling away on both sides of a path barely wide enough for 2 feet. Circling the summit, the camera shows why no army ever solved this rock. Every approach ends in open air long before it reaches a wall. In 1090, Hassani Saba took Alamut without a single sword drawn. He converted the garrison from the inside, then paid the old owner off. For a century and a half, the fortress ruled a network of strongholds famous enough to give the word assassin to half the world's languages. Alamut's library was legendary across the Islamic world, astronomy, philosophy, and forbidden ideas stacked together in a castle in the sky. In 1256, the Mongols finally ended it, taking the fortress and burning the library. Scholars saved armfuls of books as the rest turned to smoke. Today, only Wind lives on the rock, and hikers who climb the path find carved cisterns and wall stumps hanging over the same unclimbable void. Number 4. In the Judean desert, Masada spreads across a rock plateau 400 meters above the Dead Sea, where King Herod hung a 3-tiered palace off the very edge of the northern cliff. The drone descends the northern face past the 3 palace terraces, stacked into the cliff like shelves over a 400-meter drop. Sweeping across the summit, the camera crosses storehouses, bathhouses, and cisterns, a complete royal city floating on a desert rock. Herod the Great built it in the 30s BCE as a refuge no enemy could storm, with cisterns holding 40,000 cubic meters of flash flood water. In the year 73, Rome sent a full legion against 960 rebels here, and rather than storm the cliffs, the soldiers buried them under a ramp. The ramp still leans against Masada today, and the outlines of 8 Roman camps and a siege wall remain printed on the desert floor around the rock. When the walls were finally breached, the defenders chose to die free rather than be taken, a story carried out by 2 women who hid and survived. Israelis climb the snake path before sunrise to watch dawn from the ruins, and Masada shall not fall again remains a national oath. Just 3 castles left, and the final one has been called the wonder of the Western world. Number 3. In Slovenia, Prejema Castle is built into the mouth of a cave halfway up a 123-meter cliff, the largest cave castle on Earth, with a mountain for a back wall. The drone rises up the cliff to the castle face, walls growing out of the rock until the architecture simply disappears into the dark of the cave. Slipping past the towers, the camera hangs in the cave mouth where the castle's rooms burrow backward into the mountain itself. The castle was first written down in 1274, raised by masons hauling stone up to a hole in a cliff, because a hole in a cliff can never be surrounded. Its most famous lord, the robber knight Erasmus, survived a siege of more than a year because a secret tunnel through the cave led out to the surface above the cliff. Erasmus taunted the besiegers by tossing them fresh cherries brought in through the tunnel, proof that the castle could not be starved. The siege ended only by betrayal. A signal lamp marked the castle's one exposed room, and a single cannon shot found the knight inside it. Behind the castle, the cave system runs on for kilometers and hosts a colony of bats, so the fortress still guards an underground world. Number 2. In Sri Lanka, King Kashyapa built his palace on top of Sigiriya, a 180-meter column of granite, and dressed the only staircase as a colossal lion so visitors climbed in through its mouth. The drone rises the full height of the rock face, past ancient galleries and painted alcoves, until the jungle floor drops away into haze. Over the summit, the camera crosses terraced foundations and bathing pools, a palace footprint in the sky, with gardens drawn in perfect symmetry far below. Cassiopeia seized the throne from his father in 477 and, fearing his brother's revenge, moved his court onto the safest place he could imagine, the top of a rock. Halfway up, a wall polished to a mirror shine still carries poems scratched by visitors more than 1,000 years ago, some of the world's oldest graffiti. The lion gate's body is gone, but its paws remain, each claw taller than a person, gripping the staircase that once entered the beast's jaws. The summit held bathing pools, throne terraces, and water gardens fed by hydraulics so precise that some fountains at the base still spout in the rainy season. Cassiopeia's reign ended when his war elephant turned and his army fled. The Sky Palace became a monastery, and the rock kept the ruins. Number 1. Mont Saint-Michel, a Gothic abbey fortress stacked on a tidal island off Normandy, where the sea floods in faster than a galloping horse and cuts the castle off from the world twice a day. The drone races the incoming tide across the flats, water sheeting over the sand as the island closes itself off behind a silver moat. Spiraling up the village, the camera climbs ramparts, rooftops, and buttresses to the gilded archangel on the spire, 157 meters above the bay. Legend says the archangel Michael appeared to a bishop in 708, and, when the bishop hesitated, burned a fingertip hole in his skull. Construction began immediately. The abbey's crowning section is literally called La Merveille, the Marvel. 3 Gothic stories piled on the island's north face, held over the sea by a forest of buttresses. Through 30 years of the 100 Years' War, the English besieged the Mont and never took it. 119 knights held the sea gate. After the French Revolution, it spent decades as a sea prison nicknamed the Bastille of the Seas, monks replaced by inmates walking the cloister. 3 million people a year now cross the bridge, timed against tide tables, to visit an island that still refuses to fully belong to the land. 12 castles that should never have worked, and every one of them outlived the world that built it. Subscribe to Impossible Travel for the next countdown, coming soon from somewhere just as extreme.